The host, Steve Harvey, stands center stage, grinning as he prepares to introduce his next guest. His usual confidence is tempered with a sense of deep respect and admiration, knowing that today's interview will be one to remember. Steve speaks directly into the camera, his voice rich with emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest, a man whose humility and generosity have earned him not just the love of his fans, but the admiration of everyone he's ever worked with. From blockbuster action films to heartfelt dramas, this man has captured our hearts with his talent, kindness, and unwavering integrity. Please welcome Keanu Reeves. The applause grows louder as the camera cuts to the entrance, where Keanu Reeves steps into the spotlight. Dressed in a simple but elegant black suit, he walks across the stage with his usual quiet grace. A warm smile stretches across his face as he makes his way towards Steve, the genuine kindness in his eyes immediately evident to everyone in the room. Keanu's down-to-earth demeanor stands in stark contrast to the glitz and glam of Hollywood, as he waves to the audience, acknowledging their admiration without any sense of ego. As he reaches Steve, they share a brief but heartfelt handshake. Steve motions for Keanu to sit next to him, and they settle into their seats, facing each other in a comfortable, almost intimate setting. The audience, still buzzing with excitement, watches eagerly as Steve begins the conversation. But before diving into any serious questions, Steve takes a moment to acknowledge the very thing that makes Keanu stand out in a world filled with fame and fortune, the sincerity that he exudes, despite his global recognition. Steve begins, "You've been in this industry for decades, yet you're one of the most humble people I've ever met. And that's something that resonates with all of us because it's rare. What is it about you that makes you stay so grounded, despite all the success and fame?" The stage is set, and as the lights shine down on Keanu, the audience can feel that this interview will be unlike any other, a conversation that will peel back the layers of Keanu Reeves' character and take them into a deeply personal space. Keanu settles into his seat, giving the audience a quiet but reassuring smile. His presence is magnetic, yet there's no trace of arrogance or superiority. He exudes a quiet strength, like a calm river that moves effortlessly but carries an undeniable power beneath the surface. His eyes, warm and kind, meet Steve's gaze, and for a moment, the audience senses that this is going to be more than just another celebrity interview. As Steve's question lingers in the air, Keanu pauses for a moment. His fingers gently tap the armrest of his chair as he thinks carefully before responding, his voice calm, almost meditative. "I think it's just about perspective," Keanu begins, his tone reflective. "I've seen a lot of highs and lows in life, loss, hardship, and a lot of things that have reminded me how fleeting fame and success can be. When you've experienced that, you start to realize that the real value is in the connections you make with people, not the accolades or titles. I've always tried to stay grounded because I know that no matter how high you rise, we all share the same human experiences." The sincerity in his words makes the audience fall silent, hanging on every sentence. Steve nods in agreement, impressed by the depth and humility in Keanu's response. He turns to the crowd, making eye contact with several people in the audience. "You hear that, folks?" Steve says, his voice rich with admiration. "Keanu's telling us that it's the simple things that matter most. It's not about the fame. It's not about the wealth. It's about the people you meet along the way and the respect you give them. And if there's one thing that stands out about you, Keanu, it's the way you've treated people with that kind of respect." Keanu shrugs lightly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. His humility is palpable, and Steve can see that this is the essence of the man before him, someone who's never lost sight of the importance of human connection, no matter how far he's come in his career. "I don't know about that," Keanu says, smiling with a slight chuckle. "I've just tried to be kind, you know. I don't think kindness needs to be anything extraordinary. It's just about being there for others when it counts." The audience, visibly moved by Keanu's words, claps softly, appreciating his sincerity. Steve nods thoughtfully, knowing that this will be one of those moments that resonates deeply with everyone watching. Steve, deeply moved by Keanu's words, leans forward in his chair, his voice taking on a more personal tone. The mood shifts as he takes a moment to express his own admiration and connection to Keanu's character. "You know, Keanu," Steve says, "I've met a lot of people in my life. A lot of celebrities, a lot of high-profile folks. But there's something about you that's different. You've been in the spotlight for years, yet you still walk into a room like you're one of us, like you're just a guy trying to make it in this world, just like everybody else." The crowd nods in agreement, recognizing the sincerity in Steve's words. Steve, with a knowing smile, continues, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of people don't understand how rare that is. I've seen folks get lost in their own fame. They forget where they came from, forget the people who helped them get there, forget the importance of staying humble. But not you. You've managed to keep that genuine heart while being one of the most successful actors in the world. That right there, my friend, is something truly special. Keanu looks down for a moment, the weight of Steve's words landing on him. He nods slowly, his gaze soft and reflective. For a brief second, he looks as though he's absorbing the meaning of what Steve just said, almost as if Steve's words are a reminder of the path he's chosen to walk. I don't know, Keanu begins, his voice quieter now, more vulnerable. I guess I've always felt that the real power in life isn't about who you are or what you do. It's about how you make people feel. I think if I've achieved anything, it's because I've tried to make people feel seen, heard, respected. We all carry these stories, you know? And when you give someone a bit of your time, a bit of your attention, it's like you're honoring their story. Steve is visibly moved by this, his expression softening as he watches Keanu, a man who could easily be caught up in his own success, but instead remains deeply attuned to the people around him. The sincerity in Keanu's voice is undeniable, and Steve knows that this interview has already become something much more profound than just a celebrity chat. And you've done that for so many, Keanu, Steve responds, his voice filled with emotion. You've touched lives, not just with your acting, but with who you are. The way you show up, the way you take the time to care. That's what makes you stand out, and that's why people love you. The audience is silent, hanging on every word. This moment feels intimate, like an exchange between two old friends who truly understand each other. Keanu, visibly humbled, offers a quiet smile in return, acknowledging Steve's words without the need for any grand response. As the conversation flows, Steve steers the topic toward Keanu's early life, one that wasn't always as smooth as the world might assume. Keanu, a lot of people know you for your roles in movies, for being this iconic action star, but not many know about the challenges you faced off-screen. You've been through some real tough times in your life. Can you share with us a little about how you've managed to keep pushing forward? Keanu looks down at the ground for a moment, as if collecting his thoughts. The room grows quieter, the audience sensing that this part of the conversation will reveal something deeply personal. Well, Keanu begins, his voice slightly heavier than before. I grew up in a lot of different places. My mother was a costume designer, and my father wasn't around much, so I moved around a lot as a kid. It wasn't easy. There were times when we didn't have a lot, and I often felt like I didn't belong. Steve leans in, nodding with understanding. Keanu continues, his voice soft but steady. I lost a lot early on, too. My sister was diagnosed with leukemia when I was a teenager. That was one of the hardest times of my life. Watching her fight and then losing her, it was a blow I never really recovered from. The room falls silent as Keanu's words sink in. The pain of that moment, his voice filled with quiet sorrow, moves everyone in the room. Steve, ever compassionate, places a hand on Keanu's shoulder, offering silent support. And it didn't stop there. Keanu continues, his eyes distant as he reflects on the painful memories. I've lost a lot of people I loved. I lost my girlfriend, Jennifer, in a tragic accident. That was another time I felt like I was lost in the world. Steve nods, feeling the weight of what Keanu has just shared. His expression is one of deep empathy, and he addresses the audience with a solemn tone. You hear that, folks? Keanu's been through more loss than most of us can even imagine. And yet, here he is, still standing strong, still doing good in the world. Keanu glances up, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his lips, but it's clear that the memory of these experiences weighs heavily on him. Yeah, Keanu says, clearing his throat, it's not easy, but life has a way of showing you what's important. It was those tough moments that taught me the most about what matters in this world. Love, connection, and being there for the people who need you. And those lessons, no matter how painful, are what keep me going. The audience, deeply moved by Keanu's raw honesty, claps softly, but it's clear that this moment has gone far beyond a typical Hollywood interview. There's something real here, something that connects every person in that room. Steve leans back in his chair, eyes fixed on Keanu, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. After a brief pause, he asks a question that's been on everyone's mind. How does Keanu manage the burden of fame, especially given all that he's been through? Keanu, you've been in this business for a long time now. You've made some of the most iconic films ever. But let me ask you something that a lot of people wonder. How do you handle the weight of fame? It seems like you're just as humble now as when you first started. How do you keep it real? Keanu looks up, taking a deep breath before responding, his voice thoughtful and measured. You know, fame is a strange thing. Keanu begins, his tone quieter now. When you first experience it, it feels like this big, shiny thing that everyone wants. But over time, you realize that it doesn't really bring you the peace or the happiness you think it will. Steve nods, as if he understands exactly what Keanu is saying. The audience sits in silence, waiting for the next layer of truth to unfold. It's like, Keanu continues, it's like a stage. You're up there, and people are watching you, and everyone has expectations. But the more people look at you, the more you feel the weight of all those eyes, all those opinions. It's not as glamorous as it might seem from the outside. Steve looks at Keanu, listening intently, as if he's hearing something he can relate to. So, what do you do with that? Steve asks. How do you stay grounded in a world that's constantly telling you to chase the next big thing, to get caught up in fame and all the attention? Keanu pauses for a moment, his gaze drifting towards the audience, and then back to Steve. I think the key is to always remember that I'm just a person, Keanu says, his voice steady, but tinged with a deep wisdom. No matter how many movies I make, no matter how many fans I have, I'm still just a human being trying to make a difference in the world. And for me, the work I do, the people I meet, that's what keeps me grounded. It's the little moments of connection, the ones where I can see someone's face light up, or when I can offer someone a hand when they need it. That's what really matters to me. Steve, clearly moved, leans forward, his hands resting on his knees. That's powerful, Keanu, Steve says, a tone of deep respect in his voice. Because a lot of people, when they get to the top, forget where they came from. They forget the people who helped them along the way. But you've never forgotten that. And I think that's why people love you so much. Keanu smiles softly, not out of pride, but out of genuine appreciation for Steve's words. The entire room seems to exhale in unison, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. The vulnerability Keanu's shared has made him even more relatable, a man who's walked the path of fame and found a way to navigate it without losing himself. Steve, noticing the shift in the conversation, continues to steer the discussion toward a theme that has emerged as the heart of Keanu's character: kindness. Keanu, you've mentioned a couple times about kindness, how you've tried to live by it, even in the face of fame and tragedy. Let me ask you, why do you think kindness is so important? In a world that can sometimes be so harsh, what keeps you so focused on treating people with respect? Keanu takes a moment to think, his eyes lowering as if he's reflecting on something deeply personal. His voice softens further as he responds, his words filled with a quiet yet profound conviction. I think kindness is the most important thing we can give to one another. It doesn't cost anything, but it can change the world. In my life, I found that kindness is what has kept me going. It's the reason why I've been able to stay positive through tough times. It's the reason why I try to treat everyone the same, no matter who they are or where they come from. The audience listens intently, feeling the depth of Keanu's sincerity. Steve nods in agreement, a slight smile on his face as he watches Keanu speak with such genuine passion. But it's not just about giving kindness, Keanu continues. It's also about receiving it. And I've been lucky enough to be on the receiving end of so much love and support from strangers, friends, and even fans. And that has really taught me that the small moments, the ones where we're just there for each other, without expecting anything in return, those are the moments that make life truly worth living. Steve, visibly moved by Keanu's words, leans forward. That's right, Keanu. You're right about that, Steve says, his voice thick with emotion. I've seen it myself, how one kind word or one simple gesture can change a person's entire outlook on life. It's those moments that we remember. And it's why people adore you. Because you've lived your life that way. With kindness, with respect, and with love for others. Keanu smiles modestly, clearly touched by Steve's affirmation. He glances at the audience, and for the briefest moment, the weight of the conversation feels even more significant. Keanu's words about kindness are not just a philosophy. They're a way of life for him, one that has guided him through his darkest days. I don't think I'm special for practicing kindness, Keanu says, his voice softening. I think everyone has the capacity for it. It's just about being present for people, listening to them, and making sure they feel seen. I don't believe in being perfect, but I do believe in being real, and kindness is the one thing that, when you offer it to someone else, it always comes back to you tenfold. The audience is visibly moved, many wiping away tears. Keanu's humility and wisdom shine through in his words, leaving an impression on everyone in the room. Steve takes a deep breath and with a touch of emotion says, "You're a living example of that, Keanu. It's clear that kindness isn't just a choice for you. It's part of who you are. And the world needs more of that, especially right now." The applause rises from the audience, and Keanu nods in appreciation, his eyes glistening slightly, but always grounded in that quiet strength. The conversation has now shifted to deeper, more personal waters, and Keanu's vulnerability is becoming evident. Steve, sensing that the moment has arrived for Keanu to share something truly significant, asks a question that invites him to open up about the most challenging period of his life. Steve says, his tone gentle but probing, "You've told us about your hardships and how they shaped you. But tell me, what was the hardest moment of all? What was the one thing in your life that nearly broke you, but somehow you found the strength to push through?" Keanu pauses. For the first time in the interview, the weight of the question seems to land heavily on him. He takes a slow breath, his eyes downcast, as if collecting the pieces of his past. The air in the room becomes thick with anticipation, as the audience feels they are about to hear something deeply personal, something that only Keanu could truly understand. "There was a time," Keanu begins quietly, his voice cracking ever so slightly, "when I was at my lowest. I had just lost my girlfriend, Jennifer, in a tragic car accident. And not long after, my sister was diagnosed with cancer. It felt like everything was falling apart all at once, and I didn't know how to handle it." Steve leans forward, eyes filled with empathy, knowing that Keanu was about to share something intimate and painful. Keanu's hands grip the edges of his chair as he continues, his voice trembling. "I didn't know how to keep going," Keanu says, the pain in his voice unmistakable. "I lost two people I loved so deeply, and I was so consumed with grief that I didn't see a way out. I felt completely lost in the world. I had this belief that if I just kept going, things would get better. But in those moments, I didn't know if I could ever move past it." The room is completely still now, as the audience, Steve, and even the crew feel the heaviness of Keanu's words. It's a moment of pure vulnerability, and the emotional weight is undeniable. Keanu wipes his face subtly, not hiding the tears that are beginning to well up. He pauses before speaking again, his eyes meeting Steve's, and in that moment, there's an unspoken understanding between them, one human being acknowledging the pain of another. "I think the hardest part of grief," Keanu continues, "is the loneliness. When you lose someone, it feels like there's a hole in your chest that nothing can fill. And for a long time, I carried that. It was a darkness that I didn't know how to shake off." Steve, who has been listening intently, reaches out and places his hand on Keanu's arm, offering silent support. Keanu looks at him, and for a brief moment, their eyes lock in a quiet understanding of what it means to endure pain. But Keanu adds, his voice a little stronger now, "Over time, I realized that I couldn't keep carrying that darkness alone. I had to find a way to heal, to let go of the guilt, the anger, and the sadness. It didn't happen overnight, but I started to lean on the people around me. I started to find light in the small things again, like a sunset, a smile from a stranger, or a hand to hold. That was when I realized that even in the darkest times, we don't have to walk alone." The room, which had been tense with emotion, now breathes in relief. The weight of Keanu's words is a testament to the strength he has developed over the years, a quiet strength built through his willingness to confront his pain and open himself up to healing. Steve looks at Keanu, clearly moved. He speaks softly but with respect. "You know, Keanu, there's something powerful in what you just said. The strength to keep going, to find light even in the darkness, is something a lot of people struggle with. But you've become a symbol of that strength." Keanu, wiping his eyes once more, nods. "I'm just trying to stay true to who I am," he says quietly. "And I've learned that no matter how hard life gets, the moments of kindness, the connections we share with others, that's what pulls us through. It's those moments that remind us why it's worth living." The audience is silent, processing the deep wisdom Keanu has just shared. His vulnerability, his willingness to open up about his darkest moments, makes him even more relatable to everyone in the room. The emotional silence that follows Keanu's words hangs in the air for a moment, thick with the weight of everything he's shared. Steve, sensing the depth of what Keanu has just opened up about, doesn't rush to fill the silence. Instead, he offers Keanu a moment of understanding, something that speaks volumes about their genuine connection. Steve leans forward again, this time with a comforting, warm smile. His eyes, filled with compassion, meet Keanu's, and he speaks in a tone that is both grounded and supportive. Keanu, man, I can't imagine what it's like to go through something like that, Steve says, his voice steady but full of emotion. To carry that weight. But you know what? It's rare to see someone come out on the other side with this much grace. With the humility you've shown. You've been through so much, and yet you're here today, inspiring people all over the world. Keanu, still visibly affected, lets out a soft breath as if the weight of the conversation is starting to settle in his chest. He wipes his face again, but this time, there's a sense of calm in his expression, like he's letting go of something he's been carrying for far too long. Thank you, Steve, Keanu responds quietly. It means a lot to hear that. Sometimes you don't know how much something affects you until you say it out loud. And being here in this space, sharing with all of you, it's healing in a way I didn't expect. Steve nods, understanding that the act of speaking about his pain is part of the process. His words are sincere, and there's a comfort in them that reassures Keanu that he doesn't have to carry the burden of grief alone. That's the thing about pain, Keanu, Steve continues, his voice soothing. We all go through it. We all carry some kind of weight. But you're showing us how to carry it with dignity, how to find the strength to let it go, and how to still keep going when life throws it hardest punches. Keanu's eyes glisten, and he nods slowly, absorbing the wisdom in Steve's words. It's clear that the support and empathy Steve offers have given him a moment to breathe, to allow himself to be vulnerable without shame. The audience watches this exchange, many of them wiping away their own tears, moved by the genuine connection between the two men. Keanu's raw honesty and Steve's steadfast support create a powerful atmosphere that resonates deeply with everyone in the room. Sometimes, I think it's easy for people to forget that the things they see on screen aren't the whole picture, Keanu says, his voice soft yet assured. We're all just trying to make sense of this life the best way we can. And even though we might look strong on the outside, we all have our moments of doubt, of fear, of grief. And it's okay to admit that. Steve smiles, nodding in agreement. Exactly. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help, to lean on others. And it's okay to show the world that we're not perfect. The audience claps gently, not out of pity, but out of respect for the truth they've just heard and for the courage it took for Keanu to share his pain. Keanu turns to Steve and offers a grateful smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the comfort he's found in this conversation. He takes a deep breath, feeling the release of the emotional tension he's been carrying, and lets the moment settle before moving forward. The conversation begins to wind down, but Keanu's emotional openness has left a profound impact on the room. With the tension of the interview slowly dissipating, Steve gently shifts the focus back to Keanu, inviting him to share some final thoughts. Keanu, Steve says, his tone reflective, we've heard so much about your life, the struggles, the lessons, and the way you've overcome it all with such grace. But if you had to leave us with one message, something that sums it all up, something that people can take with them from this conversation, what would it be? Keanu pauses, his gaze shifting from Steve to the audience. For a moment, he seems lost in thought, as though he's considering the question on a deeper level. The room is completely still, the audience hanging on every word, knowing this will be the moment they take with them after the interview ends. Keanu clears his throat, his voice quieter now, but carrying an undeniable weight. I guess if I could leave one message, Keanu begins, his words slow and deliberate, it would be this: don't let the darkness of life swallow you whole. No matter how heavy it gets, there's always light somewhere, even if you have to search for it. And sometimes the light comes from the most unexpected places. Other people, a moment of kindness, a smile from a stranger. The room seems to hold its breath as Keanu continues, his eyes scanning the faces of the audience, as if trying to connect with each person individually. And he adds, his voice gaining a bit more strength. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit that you're not okay. We're all just human. Life isn't always easy, but we don't have to go through it alone. If we lift each other up, if we care for each other, we can make it through anything. Steve listens intently, his eyes glistening as he takes in Keanu's words. He nods slowly, clearly moved by the wisdom Keanu has shared. That's powerful, Keanu, Steve says, his voice thick with emotion. You've just given all of us something to hold on to. Something real. And I think it's going to resonate with people for a long time. Keanu gives a small, humble smile, acknowledging Steve's words but not seeking any praise. His focus is on the message he's just shared, one of light, kindness, and the importance of connection. I don't have all the answers, Keanu says quietly, but I know that the one thing that always gets me through is remembering to stay connected to the people I love, to the world around me, and to the kindness that's always there, even when it feels like there's nothing left." With those final words, the audience erupts into a heartfelt round of applause. It's not just for the actor they've watched on screen, but for the human being in front of them who has shown such courage and vulnerability. Keanu, standing before them, has shared a piece of his soul, and in doing so, has left an indelible mark on their hearts. Steve, wiping his eyes, gives Keanu a final, grateful look. "I think we can all agree, Keanu, that you've given us something to think about, something to live by. Thank you for being here today. You've truly opened our eyes and our hearts." Keanu nods, his expression soft, and with a final word, he simply says, "Thank you, Steve. It's been an honor." As the applause continues, Keanu stands up, offering a small wave to the audience, who stands and cheers for him. The warmth and respect in the room are palpable, a testament to the lasting impact of his words. As the applause fades and the cameras begin to pan away from Keanu, Steve Harvey sits back in his chair, looking out over the audience with a thoughtful expression. The emotional weight of the interview still hangs in the air. He waits a moment, allowing the energy of the room to settle before speaking again. "You know, folks," Steve says, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "that was something special. What Keanu just shared with us today, it's not something you hear every day. We've seen him in the movies, doing his thing, playing those iconic roles. But today we saw the real Keanu, the man behind the camera." The camera zooms in on Steve as he leans forward, his voice full of reverence. What he just told us about pain, about kindness, about finding light in the darkness, that's the kind of wisdom that comes from living a life. A life that's not just about the glitz and glamour, but about the hard moments that shape us. The ones that show us what really matters. The audience, still touched by Keanu's openness, nods in agreement, many wiping their eyes or glancing at each other, reflecting on the powerful message that was shared. Steve continues, his eyes never leaving the audience as he speaks from the heart. "And let's be real," Steve adds, "not all of us are going to have Keanu's level of fame, but we can all take something from what he said. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how many awards you've won. What matters is how you show up for the people around you, how you live with kindness, how you offer compassion, and how you keep moving forward even when life knocks you down." The words feel almost like a call to action, urging the audience to take Keanu's message into their own lives and apply it. Steve's words resonate deeply as he looks out over the room, speaking directly to the audience watching at home. Keanu could have easily stayed in his Hollywood bubble, surrounded by yes men and the superficial stuff. But he doesn't. He chooses to stay grounded, to show up with heart, and that's something we all can learn from. Steve looks at the stage, where Keanu is now standing off to the side, ready to exit. With small respectful nod toward him, Steve adds, "So let me just say, thank you, Keanu, for showing us that you don't have to be perfect to make an impact. Sometimes all it takes is being real. And you've shown us today just how powerful that can be." The room is quiet for a moment, as the weight of Steve's words settles in. The applause that follows is different this time, not just for the guest, but for the universal truth that was shared: kindness, vulnerability, and the strength to face life's challenges with grace. Steve turns to the audience one last time, a knowing smile on his face. "All right, folks, let's keep that love going. Keanu Reeves, everybody." The audience rises to their feet again in a standing ovation. The camera lingers on Keanu, who looks around the room, his expression a mixture of gratitude and humility. It's clear that this moment will stay with him, as it has with everyone present for a long time. As the applause fades and Keanu begins to step off the stage, something unexpected happens. A small, quiet voice calls out from the back of the room, cutting through the silence. "Keanu." It's a woman's voice, clear and unmistakable. The audience looks in the direction of the call, and the cameras immediately zoom in on the woman standing near the back row, her face filled with emotion. She's a fan, someone who has been listening intently throughout the entire conversation. The camera catches her eyes, filled with tears as she stands and makes her way to the front, her footsteps slow but determined. Keanu's head turns in her direction, his expression softening as he watches her approach. She steps up to the microphone, her voice shaky as she speaks. "Dude, what you said today, it really hit me. I've been struggling with grief, just like you. I lost my mom a year ago, and it's been so hard to keep going. But hearing your words, hearing how you found a way to keep moving forward, it's given me hope. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. The room goes silent again, the air thick with emotion. Keanu's face shifts, his jaw tightening as he fights back the flood of emotions that the woman's words have brought forth. His eyes glisten with unshed tears, and the audience watches in awe as the man who spent so much of his career in action-packed, intense roles is now completely vulnerable. Keanu slowly walks toward the microphone, his hand trembling slightly. He clears his throat, his voice quiet but filled with raw emotion as he responds. I don't know what to say, he begins, his voice wavering. Hearing that, it means more to me than you know. Because when you're going through something so painful, it can feel like you're the only one in the world who understands. But to hear that my words helped you, that's why I do this. That's why I try to be honest, because maybe, just maybe, it can make a difference. The audience is completely still, captivated by the genuine emotion in his voice. Keanu's eyes meet the woman's, and for a moment, it feels like time has stopped. They are two souls, connected by shared pain and the vulnerability to speak about it openly. The room is silent, but the connection between Keanu and the woman is palpable. You're not alone, Keanu adds, his voice stronger now. We're all in this together. And I'm so sorry for your loss. But remember, your pain is real, and so is your strength. Don't ever forget that. The woman nods, tears streaming down her face, and Keanu reaches out gently, offering a comforting hug. The audience watches this exchange, many of them wiping away their own tears, moved by the beauty of the moment. Steve, who has been standing silently off to the side, steps forward, his expression a mixture of admiration and respect. He places a hand on Keanu's shoulder, his voice steady and filled with gratitude. This, right here, folks, Steve says, his voice thick with emotion, is what it's all about. This is what real strength looks like. Not in what we accomplish, not in the fame or the fortune, but in the way we show up for each other. In the way we share our stories, our pain, and our love. Keanu, you've shown us that today, and I think we're all better for it. The audience stands, offering a tearful and heartfelt round of applause. Keanu, still holding the woman, smiles softly, the depth of his humility and compassion shining through. As Keanu steps away from the stage, the cameras follow, capturing a moment of quiet introspection. The woman, still emotional but smiling, watches him go. It's clear that this moment will change her life forever. As Keanu steps off the stage, the atmosphere in the room is electric with emotion. The applause still lingers, but it's not the usual applause of admiration for a celebrity. It's the kind of applause that comes from a deep, shared understanding, an appreciation for someone who has just given a part of their soul to the world. The camera pans over the audience, capturing the faces of those who were moved by Keanu's words. Many are wiping away tears, some are in quiet contemplation, and few are simply looking at each other, silently acknowledging the weight of what they've just witnessed. This wasn't just a typical interview. This was a moment of shared humanity, a powerful reminder of the vulnerability and strength that connect us all. A young woman in the front row, holding a tissue to her face, looks at her friend beside her and whispers, "That was the most real thing I've ever seen on TV." Her friend nods, her eyes red, and they share a brief, understanding look. It's clear that Keanu's words resonated with them in a personal way, echoing their own struggles or the struggles of people they know. The entire room seems to be holding on to the same message, that it's okay to be vulnerable, to embrace grief, and to seek connection in a world that often feels disconnected. The camera zooms in on Steve, who is standing off to the side, watching the room with a solemn expression. He takes a moment to breathe, processing everything that just happened. As the applause finally begins to die down, he addresses the audience one last time. "I think we can all agree that today was something special," Steve says, his voice a little hoarse from emotion. "Keanu has shown us all what true courage looks like, not the kind you see in movies, but the kind you see when a man opens up about his pain and gives us the gift of his heart. It's not every day you get to witness something so powerful, so raw. But today we did." The audience claps once more, this time in acknowledgement of the experience they just shared, not only with Keanu, but with each other. It's a moment of collective reflection, where the barriers between the audience and the guest have dissolved, leaving nothing but a shared humanity. And folks, Steve continues, "This is why I do this show. It's not just about celebrities, about the glitz and glamour. It's about moments like this. Moments that remind us that, no matter where we come from, we all have our struggles. And the more we share, the more we connect, the stronger we all become." The audience erupts into another round of applause, but this time, there's a sense of unity in the room. Keanu Reeves may have left the stage, but his message lingers in the air, and it's clear that it will stay with everyone long after they've left the studio. After the emotional exchange between Keanu and the fan, the applause slowly begins to die down, but the room still feels electric with the connection that was made. The cameras, however, stay focused on Keanu, who is now standing backstage, about to leave the set. Steve, noticing the palpable energy in the room, decides to invite Keanu back for a final moment of reflection. The studio audience is buzzing with anticipation, and Steve knows that this moment is one they won't soon forget. Steve says, his voice warm but still carrying the weight of the moment. "Before you go, I know you've shared so much with us today. But I want to give you one last opportunity to speak to everyone out there, because there are a lot of people watching, not just in this room, but all around the world. What do you want them to take away from this conversation?" Keanu, who had just stepped off the stage and was about to leave, turns back towards Steve, his eyes soft but still filled with emotion. He takes a slow, deliberate breath, as if gathering the strength to give one final piece of his heart. The audience, sensing this moment is about to be profound, leans forward in their seats. Keanu smiles faintly but then speaks, his voice steady and clear, yet still carrying the weight of his earlier vulnerability. "You know," Keanu starts, "I think a lot of us go through life trying to figure it all out. We're taught to keep it together, to act strong, to never show weakness. But the truth is, strength doesn't come from hiding our pain. It comes from acknowledging it, facing it, and allowing ourselves to be human." The room is so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Steve, his hand resting gently on the podium, listens intently, hanging on every word that Keanu speaks. "What I've learned," Keanu continues, "is that the more we open up, the more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we connect with each other. We're all carrying something, but when we share it, we realize we don't have to carry it alone. Kindness, connection, and love, those are the things that make life worth living." Keanu's voice catches slightly as he finishes, but he steadies himself, taking one final breath before speaking again. "So I'd say to anyone watching, don't be afraid to show up as who you really are. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And don't ever forget that there's always someone who understands, even in your darkest moments." The audience remains silent, absorbing Keanu's words. It's as if everyone is holding their breath, trying to fully internalize what Keanu just shared, his vulnerability, his humanity, and his strength. Keanu smiles gently, giving a nod of thanks to the audience, and then, almost as though he's offering one last gift, he adds quietly, "Thank you for listening." As he finishes, the room erupts into applause. This time, it's not just for Keanu, but for the message he shared, the message of human connection, of shared vulnerability, and of embracing kindness, even in the toughest of times. It's a message that will resonate long after the show ends. Keanu, clearly moved, waves one last time and exits the stage. The energy in the room is still buzzing, but it's a different kind of buzz, one that feels like the beginning of something transformative. As Keanu leaves the stage, the audience is still on their feet, applauding, but it's not just admiration for a famous actor. It's a collective recognition of the power of what just transpired. The camera pans over the crowd, catching people's faces, each one reflecting the emotional depth of the moment. Some are wiping away tears, others are still processing the depth of the conversation, while some are whispering to each other in hushed tones. Steve stands at the center of the stage, waiting for the applause to fade before speaking again. His eyes, glistening with emotion, scan the room, taking in the change he has witnessed in the audience. A room full of individuals who have just been touched by something deeply human, something timeless. "Look around you, folks," Steve says, his voice slightly choked with emotion. "Look at how we've all come together today, in this moment, to learn something real. Keanu just taught us that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to acknowledge our pain, and more importantly, it's okay to ask for help. We all have our stories, and we all have our struggles. But today, Keanu showed us how to live with dignity and strength, how to take that pain and use it to make a difference." The audience nods, reflecting on Steve's words. Some begin to wipe away more tears, while others sit in thoughtful silence. This moment is something they will carry with them long after they leave the studio. The atmosphere has shifted. It feels lighter, somehow more connected, as though the entire room has shared in something deeply transformative. Steve looks out at the crowd, his gaze intense and full of respect. "I can't think of a more fitting way to end this show," Steve continues. "We all came here to watch a great actor, but we leave today with so much more. We leave with a reminder that true greatness doesn't come from fame or accolades. It comes from being real, from showing up for each other. And Keanu, in his quiet, humble way, reminded us of that. The audience erupts into applause once more, but this time, it's more than just admiration for Keanu. It's applause for what he's represented, for the lesson he's taught them, and for the way he's connected them all in this shared human experience. Take this with you, Steve says, wrapping up the show with one final reflection. Take Keanu's message to heart, to be kind, to be real, and to never forget that we're all in this together. And if you're ever feeling lost, just remember, there's always light, even in the darkest places. Sometimes you just have to look for it. The lights dim slowly as Steve nods to the camera. The applause begins to quiet, leaving behind a room full of people who feel more connected to each other than they did when they first walked in. As the credits roll, the audience remains seated, still reflecting on what they've just experienced. Keanu's message lingers, making this episode of the Steve Harvey Show not just a moment of television, but a meaningful, transformative experience for everyone who witnessed it.